Okay, so planning an authRes remote lesson, curating resources for continuous teaching. I am JJ Epperson. I'm a Spanish teacher at Gibson Southern High School, and we're down in Southern Indiana in the little toe of the state. I'm in a small high school. It's rural. We have about 700 students, grades 9 through 12. I also have a small blog, senorajj@gmail.com. So all of my ideas eventually will be there. I've been busy learning how to teach online, as all of you have been as well. So eventually all of these ideas will also be on my blog and you'll be able to access them. Here is just a little snippet from my blog, Señora JJ. So when my school announced that we were going to distant learning, I was in Minnesota. I had just presented a 3-hour workshop at Central States, and I woke up the next morning and the conference had been canceled. And I immediately went into crisis mode and trying to figure out what I was going to do. There were so many free resources that popped up immediately. The Comprehensible Classroom, Martina Beck's Fluency Matters, Carol Gabb, El Tuerto Guti, he has written some novels that he put online. Revista Literal, which is also a resource from Martina Beck's. Senor Woolley, Teachers Discovery, all of the online learning platforms started emailing me. Add into that, I this year have 193 students. It's a lot to manage. I teach 3 levels, level 2, 3, and 4, and I have 3 18-year-olds that live in my own house who are seniors who were devastated suddenly that they weren't going to get to do all of the things that the final 9 weeks of the year involve. So all of that together, I was flat out. I was overwhelmed. And here's a confession that I would like to make. I'm not a very techie person. In fact, since I wasn't there the last few days before our school decided to go remote, or actually before the governor decided we were going remote, a lot of students came up to my own children and said, "What is your mom going to do? What is your mom going to do? What is your mom going to do?" She doesn't use all that much technology in school. She's very, very, very hands-on, talk the entire time, 51-minute class period, bell to bell, we're engaged, we're communicating the entire time. They're like, how is she going to make the switch? And of course, you know, my children didn't know. I didn't know at that time either. So I had a huge learning curve. And I needed to, like everyone else, adapt to a new normal. So the first thing I did before I looked at anyone else's free resources, I tried to determine exactly what each of my own levels needed. And it's completely different for each level. My level 3 students are not talkative. They do not participate much in class. They came to me from 2 years of traditional textbook classroom teaching, and they were very much accustomed to filling in the blank and working on worksheets, and not having to speak and not having to be on all the time. They need a lot of supports on a daily basis when I'm face-to-face with them. That is very different from my level 4 students who I have had for 4 years. So they are very chatty. They come into class speaking in Spanish. Their biggest goal is to get me sidetracked so that we can talk about something else in Spanish. And I jokingly tell them, not jokingly, it's very serious, but I tell them at the end of class, you know, you think you got me, but you just stayed in Spanish and we talked about a really tough, deep topic here. And we didn't use any English. So I think I'm the one that got U. But that's their goal in level 4. Plus, I'm preparing them for the stamp. Several have already taken it. The stamp is offered online this year. It's always online. I'm sorry. It's offered with remote proctoring this year. And I think 29 of my 34 students are planning to take the stamp so that they can hopefully get the Indiana Certificate of Multilingual Proficiency. So level 3 and level 4, completely different for me. Then I got to thinking about level 2, and level 2 was a completely mixed bag. I had students that I had had from the beginning of the school year. I also had 2 new sections. We had a teacher leave us 3 days before finals. She turned in her resignation, and I received the majority of her students. And so those students were all new and completely overwhelmed with my style of teaching and needed a lot of supports. So every single one of my groups needed something different, and there was not a one size fits all answer to that. On top of all of that, I wanted to keep my own style. I teach a lot of culture. I like to keep it comprehensible. And this little section right here says, how are you? You can't see it all very well, but I also like to show my students that I care about them on a daily basis. So that's really, really hard to do online. I need to also remember that my own children came home to this: a mom who was ready and available to support them, an internet ready home, multiple computers, a color printer. You know, it was very easy in my own home to make the transition for my children. But not everyone came home to my house. In fact, I would say a lot of students did not go home to this kind of environment where when the schoolwork was done, mom was saying, let's learn how to bake bread. Let's learn how to make pasta. Oh, we've got lots and lots of pasta. Let's learn how to make homemade ravioli, right? A lot of students went home to a very different environment than that. I sent out surveys. I've sent out almost one a week now, asking students if there's one thing they need me to know. And more than a handful, quite a few students have shared with me how stressful it is for them to be at home, that school was their safe zone. And I need to be respectful of that as a teacher. I need to understand that my agenda maybe isn't the number one important thing, getting to a certain point at the end of the year. So I asked myself, is this the time to force new acquisition? Is this the time for me to introduce something completely new? And the longer I thought about it, the more I realized that no, this was not the ideal situation for my students to acquire new information, new skills. This was a time for me to try to reinforce everything that we had already done throughout the year. So I'm going to start with level 3 and talk about what we did and how I got started with them. I did do a webinar. Let's see. I am not sure how to make this bar go away from the bottom, the Zoom bar, so that I can turn on the closed captioning with Google Slides. Teresa, do you know how to do that?
That's an excellent
Oh,
question.
look there. I can move it.
Great.
Okay. So I found a song, and I looked at the cover art of the song, and I thought, I can do more with this song. The song was in Spanish. It was very slow. It talked about emotions. Um, it was super, super easy for students to understand. But I thought, let's activate some background knowledge before we ever even listen to the song. Let's do something with this picture. So I told them to look at it, and on a piece of paper, I had them, let's see if I can go back. Every time I want them to have a piece of paper and a pencil, I tell them on my screen that they need to have a piece of paper and a pencil. Um, and I can see them all scrambling as soon as they see the slide. And it does help make things go a little easier. So I had them on their paper. I gave them 3 minutes just to write a list of things that they saw. And if their audio was not working, they used the chat to type in answers. And I got things like there is a woman holding the moon. There's a woman in a white dress. There's a person with stars. There's a hand. There is a woman in a hand. There's a woman floating. So I got lots and lots of descriptions. The next thing I had to do, the next thing we did, this is a 3-step process. I gave them 4 minutes to write as many questions as they possibly could come up with about the photo. Since this was my level 3 and they needed lots and lots of supports, I went ahead and gave them the question words right there. They're always posted in my classroom for students to see. So I wanted to make sure that our online situation, our online class, was as close to my classroom as possible. So then they had 4 minutes, and I played the song in the background while they wrote their questions. At the end of that time, I received answers like, why is the woman holding the moon? Why does she have gloves? Who is the woman? Why does the other face not have stars? What month is this? Um, why is the face a man and the hand a woman? So I had a very big variety of questions that they came up with. In round 3, with the very same piece of cover art, I had them do quizás statements, or statements that begin with maybe or perhaps. This was a way for them to practice the subjunctive. So every sentence that they wrote, they had 4 minutes again, had to start with quizás. And so I received responses like, well, maybe the woman has the weight of the world on her shoulders. Or maybe the woman wants to throw the moon. Or maybe the person is lifting the woman up. Or maybe the woman is flying away. So they had just a very, very wide variety of statements that they were able to make. And I forgot to say, I started it off with asking them how they were that day. And I gave them this slide because this is my group again that needs a lot of supports, right? So I asked, how are you today? Oh, I am either a condition or an emotion because, and then they had to put it together. So it's all right here for them. And I gave them plenty of time to write it down on their paper first. Those who had audio and wanted to use it did. Those who were more comfortable typing in the chat did. I will tell you with my level 3s, everyone wants to type in the chat and no one wants to speak. With my level 4s, they're fighting to speak. So it's just two completely different groups, as I mentioned before. Then sorry, I have too many things on here to try to. Then we listened to the song. And the song, I'll play just a little bit for you here. Okay, share computer sound.
Calma, calma, no pasa nada.
So you can, it's a very slow song. You can hear that it's slow. The words are very clear, very easy to understand. So we listened to the song, and then I had them on their paper write the numbers 1 through 6, and we listened a second time. And this time we just did a simple close activity because at the end, when I was planning this out, I knew once we got to this point, we weren't going to have very much time left. And so they had heard the song several times through. I played it while they were writing their lists and their sentences and their questions. And then we just went through the answers. I ended it by using a phrase from the song. Everything passes. I have patience. I'm learning to love. Everything is okay and calm. And so we stopped then in our Spanish, and we did talk in English a little bit about what it was like to learn online and have school be canceled, and the gamut of emotions that they were experiencing, what it was like to have the opportunity to stay up all night and sleep all day if they wanted, do their homework at midnight or 3 o'clock in the morning. Although most of them have discovered that their teachers aren't available at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so a lot of them responded to me that they felt supported in that way and understood. Since I am very interested in teaching culture, I also wanted them to learn, turn the captions back on. I also wanted them to learn about the legend of Popocatépetl e Itzaxihuatl. Then the caption says it's a lot like seawater. Itzaxihuatl. It is the story of how the two volcanoes in the background of the picture came to be. And so the students, we did a very similar writing activity. I just said, what do you see? And they described the picture. So we got to talk about the colors that were in there, and the smoke and the fire, and the man was sad and the woman was either asleep or dead. We didn't know. And there were mountains in the background and clouds and lots of colors. There are lots and lots of things to talk about and describe here. And I put the same picture up over and over and over throughout my presentation, so that they, and by the way, this is a famous piece of artwork too. So just so that there's something constant on the screen. With this one, after we had done, all we did was describe the picture that we saw. The next thing that we did, since this was a legend, I gave them 5 events, very simple events from the legend. One event was the boy went to fight in the war. The second one was a young man and a young woman loved each other profoundly, very deeply. another event, the girl transformed herself into a volcano. Then another event, the girl died, and the final event, the boy transformed himself in a volcano. Once they had those 5 events, I told them, oh, guess what? Those events are not in order. On their paper, I listed the events again for them and told them to write on their paper the order that they thought the legend went in. In their mind, how do these events turn into a legend? What order should we put them in? So I gave them 2 or 3 minutes to write those down. And then I did not ask for any answers because their very next task was to, oops, I guess it doesn't tell it there. Their next task, I set a timer for 10 minutes and I turned on some music, and I do this often in my classes too. Music is my background and we do timed writings all the time. They had to write what they thought all the other details of the legend were. So they had 10 minutes. They had to write several paragraphs. At the end of it, I had them take a picture of their writing, what they had just written by hand. Take a picture, use their camera as a scanner. If they knew how to do that, we worked on that in one class. If they didn't know how to do that, they could just take a picture and turn it into Google Classroom. I had a place for it as an assignment in the classroom. So at this point, Teresa, do you think maybe we should open it up and ask if anybody has any questions?
Yeah, we can do that if people would raise their hands or if they would type a question into the chat box. We can have you ask questions either way.
So the question or the activity that I described with the picture earlier while we're waiting on a question is something you can do with any kind of picture. Famous artwork, a picture of a statue, the cover art from the song. I see something here in the chat.
Yeah, how do you do the caption? Is this a question about how we're doing the captions on the webinar or a question? Oh, gotcha.
So that the slides can have the caption. I think the first question was about I'm not clear about the how do you do the caption question.
So for the webinar that JJ is presenting right now through Google Slides, there's an option to do real-time captions. Yes.
So I don't know if you can see, down here in the bottom, after you hit present, there's the CC, the captions, and you can change the languages.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. You can include any language in PowerPoint and also in Google Slides if you want to present the slides to the students in multiple languages, in your language, the language that you're teaching.
So Amanda asked, what type of participation do you get with this, and do you record your courses? So if I'm asking them to speak verbally in my online courses right now, my level 3s are not participating. If I tell them, well, a handful will participate, a handful. If I say, type it in the chat, and keep in mind that you're in a dual credit class and that I'm giving you a grade for this, the high school may not be giving you a grade for this, or they may be considering your attendance here an A. USI does not have that policy. And then that generally, I have 30 students in my Zoom class, and I'll have 30 chats immediately. So do I record my courses? Sometimes. I did not in the beginning because I didn't know how. Then I figured it out, and then students said they weren't going to watch it anyway. So sometimes I do. What I have done instead is shared my slides with students and given them the opportunity to ask me questions. about it. How would I introduce the new vocabulary? So the online portion, the Zoom class, goes hand in hand with what their homework is for the week. And I have been very blessed to have a school corporation who understands the demands of teaching online and does not expect me to meet with my students every single day. They also do not expect me to give an assignment every single day. They have been extremely, I don't want to say lenient, that's not the right word, practical. They've been extremely practical in how we are going about this. And we've had 3 days of classes and 2 days off, 2 waiver days. So that has been so helpful for me. And I introduced the new vocabulary in the homework assignments that I put on Google Classroom. So they're typically with some kind of a reading or a song or some other kind of activity that they have to do a close reading of something, and then the words are, what is it called when they have the little number on them and then the definition is at the bottom? My mind is drawing a blank. But that's what that is. Glossed. Thank you, Amanda. Glossed. So when you start teaching online, what is the percentage of your students that show up? In my level 3, that's my largest group of students. I would say 90 to 95% of my students are showing up to my Zoom classes, and 100% of my students are doing the work. And this is because they're all dual credit. And they're juniors, right? My sophomores, we don't do Zoom classes. And I am having to track down a lot of work. There is a huge maturity difference between sophomores, juniors, and then seniors. My seniors, I don't have to track down at all. I have a handful of juniors, and then I have a lot of sophomores that I have to track down. And that honestly is age. It's just simple maturity. It's brain maturity. And it's not their fault. And they didn't ask for online classes. I didn't ask to teach online. And so one meeting. Oh, so Sarah has a question. Do you do one meeting per level or do you try to break them up by class? So what I have done, I have 3 sections of Spanish 3. So I have offered 3 possible Zoom classes: a morning class, an afternoon class, and an evening class, because I also have a lot of students who are working. So in order to try to work around their schedules, I try to have 3 different options, and they can come to any one that they want to come to or that works in their schedule. And if they can't make one, for the most part, they're very responsible and email me and ask if they can make it up, or let me know that there's no way that they can do it, and want to know. But again, it's because in level 3 they're dual credit, and that, I think that makes a huge difference. They want that university credit. Okay, so I am going to switch to level 4. Yes, that's next. Let's switch to my level 4. And this class, let me move this again so I can make sure I turn on the captioning. This group of students is my chatty group of students. So I play a lot of videos. I play videos in my level 3 as well, but I play a lot of videos that they listen to and have to interact with me verbally on in level 4. And this one is just a group of elementary students talking about why Spanish is important to them. So this is our topic for this class week. For this week of this class is, why is Spanish important? And what their prompt was, what their writing prompt was, why is Spanish important to you and how are you going to use it in the future? So they had 10 minutes to use that or to figure that out and write it down. And again, take a picture and send it to me. They couldn't use a dictionary or a telephone or any kinds of electronics. But that is the normal for my class. And so they don't even consider looking, because I've had them for 4 years and they've only ever used the language that they know, right? They haven't ever run to grab dictionaries or asked to use Google Translate. And that is the number one reason why I am not a very techie person, is because I don't want to deal with online translation services. So that class, and this was the end of that class. Let me back up a little bit. Nope, I guess it wasn't the end. So I gave them a few supports, just like I would on my Blackboard, and things that they could start their writing with. My opinion is, in my opinion, I will have the opportunity, I will work with. So I gave them a few supports and I flipped back and forth between the prompt and the supports. And then they can use their phone to turn it into, these are iPhone instructions right here, but they can use their notes app in iPhone to use their camera and turn something into a PDF. But what most students have just done instead is take a picture of what they were doing. We have talked a lot about why moving is important. And so I found a video of a man having kids do an activity where they stand up and move. And this guy it's Vitamina C. And he does videos for small children, which is great because even though we're level 4, the language and vocabulary set that we have is not crazy advanced. It's intermediate high. And so these videos are tailored to that vocabulary level, believe it or not. And so this is an activity where they're have to touch their head and their shoulder and their hip and their knee and their ankle. And then you do it faster and you say words and you don't say words at certain times. And so we watched this video and then I had everyone stand up just like we would in class. And I moved my screen and everyone watched me stand up. And we did it together as a class on Zoom. Then we had a little conversation. Why is movement important for the body? What was the purpose of the video? Why did the man create a video like this? For whom or who all is the video? Who did he create it for? Is it possible to be united together without distances being important? We live in a super different world now. How can we remain together? How can we be connected? So we had a great conversation, and the only students who didn't speak were students who had internet problems. So they were typing furiously, trying to get their points of view in. We watched a video that it's actually by Movistar. And that video is all about emotion and how, of course, it's all for Movistar for you to use their service, their internet or their telephone service, their cell phone service. But you see people do a gamut of emotions. So we talk about that. We talk about what it's about. Then we read the words that the executive president of Movistar in Peru wrote about that and about coronavirus, and we had a conversation about that. We read the words together, and I flipped back and forth between what the president said and what my questions were. And my questions are geared towards helping them think in a different way about what someone is saying. So question number 3 is, how would the integration, and that should be of technology, contribute to all of this that's going on? And so how can it help? And so I'm trying to provoke them to think a little bit outside of the box and a little bit beyond, and definitely outside of their comfort zone, both linguistically and emotionally. And so, of course, we grab our piece of paper and our pencil, and I tell them that they are going to write an email to a friend who can't leave their house because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And what advice will they give to have fun, take care of themselves, and not get bored? What do they do? What do you personally do in order to have fun, take care of yourself, and not get bored? And what is important to remember in this situation? So the stamp prompts are long like this and very involved. So this was 100% practice for them taking the stamp. And then again, I gave them more ideas of things that they could use, and I made sure that I switch back and forth every few minutes. So this was a prompt. They had 15 minutes. I told you I do a lot of timed writing. They had 15 minutes to write whatever they wanted. And then we don't talk about what they write. I just have them take a picture and send it to me. And then I do, at the end of just about every class, give them the opportunity to ask me questions in English if they want, or just chat in general. And believe it or not, even though I give them permission to speak in English, a lot of them are like, yeah, no, this is Spanish class. We're sticking in Spanish. And so they'll still do that. So does anyone have any questions about this? Because this is a little bit different. Level 3, I was doing pictures and lots of supports. Level 4, I do lots of videos and lots of conversation. If you are a Spanish teacher, you can go to Zachary Jones, Zambumbaso. Even if you do not purchase the subscription, he still has all of his videos and all of his activities categorized. So if you want to do a lesson on emotions, say you want to talk about love, you just he's a wonderful resource. Like, there's a song, here's a video, here's another video, and then you could put it together your own way.
What we can also do, you can, in participants, you can raise, send the raise your hand icon, and we can also identify if you want to speak, and we can unmute you.
Okay. So we got a little bored, so I started using my Bitmoji a little more in class. One of the favorite things we do in class is make fun of Senora. I do lots of silly things in class, lots of things that can be made fun of. And I personally feel like if my students are making fun of me, they don't have time to make fun of anyone else in class. And I like to model an appropriate response for being made fun of. So I encourage them to make fun of me so that I can show others how to laugh and kind of shake it off a little bit. How silly things that you do really are silly and they really are funny. So we talked about, believe it or not, cleaning in one of our classes. And I had another piece of art and I asked,
JJ, sorry,
yes.
could you turn captions back on?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You've been doing a great job.
Thank you for nudging. So I asked them, what do you see? And so this was level 4. So they saw a lot and had a lot to say about 3 cats cleaning this room. So they had 3 minutes, and then they had their list of questions. What are 3 questions that you have? I still gave them in level 4 the supports, the question prompts, just because they've had them for 4 years in my room. And there's no, it doesn't hurt me to put them in my slide for them to be able to see them. Then they had to do their perhaps or maybe about this, and we got lots of really silly ones about the cats, with a quick little reminder about how to use it for in the subjunctive. And then we talked about what chores do they have to do, and when do they have to do them. And then we talked about what chores did you do yesterday or another day. I found a video of a song where this gentleman is from Puerto Rico, and he made up a parody to Macarena, and it was cuarentena. And he's talking about all the chores he got done and everything he was doing, and he didn't get to go have fun. All he got to do were chores. And so we talked about what were some of those chores that he did yesterday or recently that he sang about. And I threw in some memes. Mi casa es tu casa. And since the cats were in the painting, then I had cats in my memes. There are questions in the chat. The pictures are beautiful and detailed. Where do you find them? So the majority of them are a simple Google search. If you want absolutely gorgeous pictures of current events that you can do this activity with, I would go to Reuters, Reuters. And that's a news source. And Reuters.com, they have the picture of the day. You can find pictures from a specific country. If there's a lot of politically active, if you like to talk about current events, there's a lot of pictures of things that are going on around the world that you can talk about. And if you do that, you can also zoom in on the picture so that you just see a tiny little portion of it, and then have kids describe what that is, and ask them if they can figure out what the whole thing is, and then you zoom out and you can see what the actual picture is. But for this lesson, then we listened to a song by Mon Laferte, and she's talking about chores. And actually, she's not happy about the chores because she's falling out of love, or someone's not in love with her anymore. And so we talked about, do you feel like doing chores? Why or why not? And then for their writing prompt, this one they had 20 minutes. It was a little bit longer. And they compared, again, we're preparing for the stamp. So they compared their life now as a student who's getting ready to graduate with the life, their life when they were smaller, when they were little kids. What chores did they have when they were younger? And how do they help out in the house now? Are chores important? Why are they important? And then perhaps they had some advice for their friends. Anytime you get into advice, you are inviting the subjunctive. So it was just a way to practice their prompts. And I gave them a little bit of, with consejos. The consejos is purple. So they know in my classroom, if something is another color other than black, that I'm going to give them a little more information. And so that little bit of information were ways in which they could use the subjunctive to fill out their writing. How are we doing on time? Okay. Another question in the chat. Let me see if I can get to it. Okay, so Renetta asks, what suggestions would I make for those who cannot regularly meet online with their students, but still want to do these types of writing prompts? So I would do it, I would set it up. Are you in Google Classroom, Renetta? You can unmute yourself, or maybe Teresa can unmute you. Oh.
Yep, I've unmuted Ronetta.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, I am. Hello. Hola.
Hola. So are you using Google Classroom?
Yes, I am.
So have you ever recorded your lesson, your slides presentation with Loom?
Yes, I've been doing that.
So you can do this exact same thing as a slides presentation, only with Loom. And students could type their responses into a Google Doc, or there are lots of recording devices. I use Loom because it's simple. All I have to do is click one button and it starts and it records, and I click one button and it finishes. But they could type their responses into a Google Doc, and they could submit it right there on Google Classroom.
Okay. I just am more concerned about their use of Google Translate and that kind of thing. I get a lot of that, especially the lower levels.
Yeah. And which is another yeah. And unfortunately, I don't have a solution for the Google Translate.
Yeah.
I think if we're not sitting there watching them, it's going to be used.
Right.
And so I've only done writing prompts like that in my Zoom classes. I haven't done them as a lesson for them, because I mean, everyone knows when their student has used a translation service, because they're like suddenly using advanced structures and vocabulary that they've never come in contact with. And if you ask them what it means later on, they're like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Where did you get that? I just knew it, but why don't you know it now? So that's why I have saved my writing prompts for my Zoom classes. But if you can't meet with your students, my best advice is control the things that you can.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't something that you can control. So give them the writing prompt and just, do you have to take it as a grade?
No. I have a lot of flexibility too, like you.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
So, yeah. So then those students who are going to use it are going to use it, and those students who aren't.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Monica Da Costa had has maybe some ideas for you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah. We had a lot of fun with some videos in, another question. Hold on. I want to make sure I get it. Monica needs to be unmuted.
Okay, I can be heard. Just real quick, Ronan, I just wanted to say that a couple weeks ago, was just pulling my hair out about the same thing with the Translate. So I just said to the students, I just kind of kept inserting on everything. Google Translate equals cheating, Google Translate equals a 0, and Google Translate equals academic dishonesty. And but then what I did is for Spanish 3, I offered a writing prompt both weeks. And what I did was I gave them I wrote out the answers to the writing prompt, giving an example from me personally. And I told them, you can use my example, but just change the things that pertain to you. And that really has been a game changer in the work that the students have been giving me over the last 2 weeks. And I've given them so many writing prompts, but giving them that, modeling that for them. And it's way better than them Google translating. At least they have to do some work to try and understand what I've written and then figure out what needs to be replaced and what's good about what I wrote. So that's it. I just wanted to share that with you, that if you give them sort of a model of what you're looking for as a response, you might get a little bit less of that Google Translate. And it's been better for the past 2 weeks for me. Just want to let you know that.
That's great, Monica. I love that idea.
Thank you.
I want to make sure I get to everyone. Okay, there aren't any more questions in the chat. So a really fun activity, and then I think we're kind of running out of time here. A really, really fun activity that we did in level 4 that you could do with all kinds of different supports for all kinds of different levels. I did this because my own children are very, very fond of the Marvel movies. They love Spider-Man and Iron Man and all of that. So I decided that we were going to talk about superheroes one week. And I said, if you were a superhero, would you wear a costume? And so this is a little clip of Spider-Man jumping into his costume, and it's all baggy and doesn't look like a superhero costume until he hits a special button. And so they immediately want to talk because they all love Spider-Man. Well, then the next clip is a clip of the Captain America group of superheroes fighting the Iron Man group of superheroes. And so if you were a superhero, would you be a member of Captain America's team or Iron Man's team? And then everybody has an opinion, especially the boys. And if they've been quiet, they're no longer quiet because they have something to say. What superpower would you like to have and why? And again, I'm just trying to activate the conditional here, again, to practice for the stamp. So we talked about superpowers, and I gave them a little bit of a support. I would like to have the superpower of, I would like to have the ability to, and then I brought it home and made it real. Is it possible? Whoops, got ahead of myself. Is it possible that there are superheroes that appear completely normal? And the Captain Marvel trailer was all about captains of different sport teams. The one in Spanish, it was captains of different sports teams and training and looking sweaty, and they don't look like superheroes at all. They just look like people working out, normal everyday people. And so that kind of changed our thought process. And our writing prompt for that one was, if you could meet an inspiring person in the world, who would you most like to meet? Why? Does this person possess special values? And what are they? So, so that was a super fun and super successful class. So any other questions or anything? I haven't really gotten to level 2 and what we did with level 2, but I didn't do any Zoom classes with level 2. Hello, escape. What I did with level 2, and it pretty much has been the same thing every week. I will, Monica, I will share the superhero slides for sure. For sure. The entire thing is being recorded so we can access it later, but I can also make all of my slides accessible as well. That's fine. El Tuerto Guti has written some really funny novels, and La Tomatanza, it's the killing of the tomatoes. And it's really the story about how ketchup came about. And I wouldn't call this authres exactly because it is not written by a native speaker, but it is in Spanish and it does use extremely comprehensible language and it's very funny. So we have done, I have done a lot, and he made it free online, and he made a video of himself reading it available, and it's eltuertoguti.com, I believe. And this one I did make to make sure that my level 2s understood. I did 2 chapters a week, and to make sure they understood, in my slides presentation that I recorded with Loom, I talked about the key vocabulary. Do you like fruit? Do you like lemons and bananas? Do you like peaches? And then I responded for myself, modeled how that would be, that I like all of those things, and but I love vegetables. And so then, do you like vegetables? And do you like lettuce or broccoli? I love pumpkin. And so, and I pause and I do all of the questions that I ask, the yes, no questions, the either or, the who, what questions. I just don't have an audience actually supplying me answers, but I do the questioning just as I would in class. And then I took the time to copy and paste, and the author, El Tuerto Guti, is perfectly fine with this. I cleared it with him first. I copied and pasted his chapters into my presentation that I was recording, and I gave as many supports as I possibly could. So, and I read the chapter. Students are hopefully listening and reading along at the same time. And at some point, they have 2 of everything. They have a swimming pool for the fruits and a swimming pool for the vegetables. They have a hospital for fruits, hospital for vegetables, school for fruits, school for vegetables, supermarket for fruits, and supermarket for vegetables. And they're not cannibalistic fruits and vegetables. They eat meat, which is one of the funny things about them. And so I tried to make it as comprehensible as I possibly could while recording. And then online, I'll put the questions, comprehension questions, maybe a song that has something to do with it. Martina Bex has a really funny or fun lesson about the song Las Ketchup. It has a little dance to it. So I recorded myself doing the dance for students. I tried to look like I was having as much fun. And, you know, when you pretend like you're having fun, the thing is you end up having fun. So I tried to pretend in my recorded classes that I was having just as much fun as if they were sitting right in front of me, reacting and making fun of me. And I learned a new phrase, colorín colorado, estos capítulos se han acabado. Just a little phrase to say something is done, something is finished, a little rhyme. And then I did that each week with whatever the chapters in the book were.